Alright, Chapter 2, Rules of Blackjack. The first step of the learning of the game of blackjack was to master the rules emphasized with the word master. Even knowing the exact meaning of the rules is not enough. The reader must be able to understand the effect of each of the rule, each most possible variation. Both experienced players and the beginner should study with the chapter. Even each of the casinos has set blackjack rules with agree with the other, which those of the other casinos on main points, but which usually differ in details. Later in this book, we analyze the effect of these variations, but first, for simplicity, we consider the typical set of rules that set with a common yet by no means universal as listed below. Number of the players. A blackjack game dealer from 1 to 7 players. We see later the general speaking, the fewer the number of players at the table, the better it is for the player. The pack. Ordinarily, 52 card is commonly used. However, the more and more casinos are going over to 2, even 4 packs shuffled together in an effort to making card counting more difficult. And it turns out that increasing the number of the packs cuts the player's advantage slightly. In Puerto Rico, 2 decks are generally used, and in London, 4 decks dealt with a shoe are common to deal. Before play begins, the cards shuffled by the dealer, and the player with the next card is next. Before the player begins, the card is shuffled by the dealer and cut by a player. Next, a card is burned, placed face up on the bottom of the deck. The burned card may or may not be shown. The dealer that deals 2 cards to himself to each of the player. Players get both cards face down. The dealer receives 1 card face up and 1 card face down. The 2 cards for the player and the down card of the dealer are called hole cards. So the 2 cards of the player and the down card of the dealer are called hole cards. Some of the casinos deal with the players' hole cards face up. This is practiced in Puerto Rico very conventionally with the players who count the cards. On the other hand, seeing the player's card in no way help the dealer. If it usually case of the casinos, he must, according to the fixed rules, which shall also be half the times the absence of the 1 burned card enough to give the player a slight edge over the house. This is not true with 2 or more decks are used. Betting. The players place above all bets except insurance, discussed subsequently. Before any of the cards are dealt with, the house establishes a minimum bet and a maximum bet. The minimum bet usually is between 25 cents to $5. Maximum bet between 100 and 500. Our winning strategies involve the varying of the side of the player's bet, but the player base places larger bet in favorable situations, smaller than one unfavorable situation. Size of minimum bet greatest intent to the player with the smallest amount of capital. Size of the maximum bet interest of the player with a large amount of capital because it limits the rate at which he can win. In Puerto Rico, a $1 minimum and a $50 maximum are common. In London, minimum of $5 to Euro 1, approximately 70 cents to $2.80, and a maximum of 50 to 140 are common. Numerical value of cards in hard and soft hands. The player can choose with either 1 or 11 the value of the ace. The numerical value of the face card is 10. The numerical value of the other cards are simply their face value, which we call the soft, and contains if it contains an ace, that an ace can be counted as 11 without causing the total to exceed 21. We call the other hands hard. Since there are 2 possible totals for a soft hand, we shall define that the total soft hand is the number obtained counting ace is 11. The distinction between hard and soft hands is important. We shall see that the best strategy for a player with a soft hand of certain total usual differs from sharply from the strategy for the hard hand on the same total. Objective of the player. Each player tries to determine the total that is greater than the other than does not exceed 21. Naturals. If the first 2 cards are dealt either to the player or to the dealer consist of an ace or a 10 value card, they constitute what we should call a natural or blackjack. If the player has a natural and a dealer does not, the player receives 1.5 times his original bet of the dealer. If the player does not have the natural, the dealer does. The player loses his original bet. If both player and dealer have naturals, no money changes hand. In 1964, automatic blackjack machines were introduced into northern Nevada, which paid 2 to 1 for any United player natural. We analyzed this machine in Chapter 9. Alright, the draw starts at the left of the dealer, proceeds with the clockwise fashion. A player looks at his whole cards and may elect to stand and draw no additional cards. Otherwise, he can request additional cards from the dealer, which are dealt face up at 1 at a time. If the player busts or goes over 21, he immediately turns up his whole cards and pays the bet to the dealer. After each player has drawn its cards, the dealer turns up the total card of the total of 16 or less. He must draw a card and continue with the draw until he is total of 17 or more, at which point he stands. If the dealer receives an ace, if counting it as 11 would bring his total to 17 or more without exceeding 21, then he must count the ace as an 11 and stand. Many casinos after the rule soft hand so that the dealer draws soft 17 less and stands on soft 18 or more. In this way of the game, the small advantage, some casinos gain still more in other variation types. It is common practice for the players to request additional cards of the dealer either by saying hit or hit me or simply scratching the felt on the table with the top of the cards. To refuse the additional cards, the player places his whole card face down, may also stand or put his card under his bet. It considers bad form for the player who touched to be bet itself after being dealt has begun. One reason for this is the players have known to attempt and by sleight of hand to alter their bet after seeing the dealer's up card. The settlement. If the player does go over 21, the dealer does the player win the amount equal to his original bet. If neither the player nor dealer busts, the person with the higher total wins the amount equal to the original bet of the player. If the dealer or player have the same total not exceeding 21, nobody changes hand. A player that is called the player-dealer tie is called a push. When there is a push, the dealer removes the player's cards without touching his bet. This also seems confusing to bring the push forcibly with the player's attention. Dealers sometimes hold the player's cards face up and strike the table a couple of times before removing them. In some games, the dealer takes all ties and gives him a horrible 9% edge. In some games, the dealer takes all ties. This gives him a horrible 9% edge. Avoid such games. If ties stand off, one might think the experts effect with the naturals of this game is even if the player uses precise same strategy as the dealer. However, it has been observed that the player who uses the strategy of the dealer loses an average rate of 5 to 6%. This reason is if the player busts and he loses his bet to the dealer, even though the dealer may later bust also. Thus, the case wherein both player and the dealer bust in example of a tie that is won by the dealer. Splitting pairs. If a player has a whole card numerically identical, they are called pair. They may choose to turn them face up or to treat them as identical cards, two separate twin hands. This is known as the splitting a pair. If the original bet goes for one split card and an equal amount is bet on the other card, the player automatically receives the second card face down on each split card. Then he places his twin hands on one at a time, although they were original ordinary hands, with the following exemptions. In case of split aces, the player receives only one card on each ace. Further, if the face card 10 falls on one of the split aces, the hand is not counted as a natural, but only as an ordinary 21. Similarly, if the player splits a pair of face cards or 10s, then draws an ace, it counts only as an ordinary 21. If the player splits in pairs, receives a third card on the same value, he is not permitted to split again. Aces are best pair of splits. Temporarily, Las Vegas rules change now off again forbade splitting aces. The first automatic blackjack machine introduced into Nevada do not allow pair splitting. Doubling down. After looking at his whole card, the player may elect to double his bet and draw only one more card. Strategy is known as doubling down. A player who doubles down turns up his whole card and receives his third card face down. A player who splits any pair except aces after receiving an additional card on each of the split cards double down one or both of the twin hands. In Puerto Rico, doubling down is permitted with a total of only 11 only. Some Nevada casinos, particularly within Reno, Lake Tahoe, allowed doubling down only on totals of 10 and 11. The same true with the first automatic black machines. Temporary Las Vegas rules changes now often again restricted double down to totals of hands of 11. This was only rules changed beside with the restriction splitting aces mentioned above. Restriction on double down tend to increase the house advantage. Insurance. If the dealer's up card is an ace, an additional wager to allow before the draw. After checking his whole card, the player must put up an additional side bet equal or must have the original bet After the player has decided whether or not to do this, the dealer checks his whole card. The dealer has to naturally aid between the win twice as his amount. If the dealer does not have the natural side bet, he lost and plays continue with the original bet is settled in the usual way regardless of the side bet. Suppose, for instance, the player makes a side bet, but the dealer has the natural and the player does not, and the player loses his original bet but wins the same amount back on the side bet. No net loss or gain. This is why a side bet is referred to as insurance. Many of the casinos in northern Nevada do not allow insurance, nor do they automatic blackjack machines. Custom and practice connected with the game of blackjack, which are not thought of as part of the rule theoretically, from the casino to casino. Sometimes the casino of different shifts, and sometimes times are even among the dealers on the same shift. The Nevada casinos generally are open continuously, night and day, and they are therefore three shifts of employee. In Puerto Rico, the casino is generally open from about 8 p.m. to 4 a.m. There's only one shift. The custom of the practice will have little bearing on the basic strategy, but the Chapter 3 will interest the connection with the winning strategy discussed subsequently. Shuffling. If the custom of the dealer can shuffle at any time between the hand, the dealer shuffles in the midst of the play of the hand. If the deck is exhausted, dealer who shuffles in the midst of the play of the hand when unused cards remain improbable is probably a cheat. The player may request a shuffle between hands. Some dealers comply with some refuse. We shall refer to practice unnecessary frequently shuffling by the dealer's shuffle up. Shills. A shill is a house employee who bets money and pretends to be a player in order to attract customers to simulate play. Shills may or may not be used in a given casino at a given time. Shills generally follow the rules. They never double down, split pairs, insure. They stand on the hard totals for 12 or more. They often follow the dealer's rules, drawing and standing on soft totals, and shift does not follow fixed strategy. He may be helping the dealer and or house to cheat the players. See our later discussion of the anchorman. New decks. The player and by custom, but not necessarily by law, is supposed to be able to request a new deck whenever he wishes. Generally, new decks are first spread face down among the others to give the dealer a chance to check the back of the cards. Imperfections that turn down could be used in player-identified cards when they are face down. The cards are spread face up and then give the player a chance to see that no cards have been removed from the added to the decks. Chapter 3, Basic Strategy.